let's talk about pools and operations and all kinds of fun stuff. So
That's cool.
you're Adam Johnson. You're the lead designer or the senior designer and director of operations with Southernwind Pools.
Yeah, that's right. So I've got some good history with Southern Wind. It was my first design opportunity. Entered the industry in 2016, and have been doing it ever since. And this story behind that's kind of cool. I mean, out of college, bounced around through different industries. Was in the healthcare industry for a time with software around finding doctors, uh, and spent time from there. Went to logistics for a real small stint, and then into telecom for a while, and in marketing spaces and sales spaces. And I enjoyed that. I learned a ton from each industry, and it was cool to have a diverse, background coming out of college, and focusing on communications and stuff like that. But yeah, but then I found myself at this place where it was like, all right, the creative side that I had from the time I was a kid, I just wasn't really tapping into that. And there was, I think, some internal frustration with it. And I just said, I don't know where I go from here. I've tried it. And Rebecca, my wife, she was actually the one that found the job posting for me. And the lady that was watching our kids, she said, hey, he should go be a pool designer, which I had no consciousness of pool design or even that was a thing, until the moment she put it in front of me and said, hey, you'd be good at this. Go do this. You've always wanted to draw for a living. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And fortunately for me at the time, Southernwind was looking for creative people that were outside of the industry, that had sales background and were good communicators, but they didn't know anything about pools. And so when I told them, yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about it. They were like, that's actually what we're looking for. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was kind of the model there. And so we kind of keep that even today. And I just feel very fortunate, to be doing what I'm doing,
That's
so
really cool.
yeah.
I had no idea that they would be looking for specifically for someone not to come in with that. Is that really to be able to kind of help mold, someone to like the culture and the techniques and things that they had in mind, or?
Yes, I think it's short, and training them from the ground up in their way. I think the pool industry's changed so much, especially in the design aspect, but from build standards and things of that nature. It's been around so long that sometimes they're like, hey, if you've got somebody that's got a lot of history, there's a lot of family history in pools. You see that. And so if that carries through with somebody, sometimes it's a little harder to adjust, So somebody who's fresh and is like, yeah, just how do we build it? Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but no, it was good.
Okay. What kind of work are you focused on most right now? Because you kind of have two titles. So what does a day look like for you, and where do those focuses lie?
Yeah, well, the great part, I was telling this to the lady that was cutting my hair yesterday. So the great part about what I do is no one day is like the next. And for me, that's really good. There's certainly repetition in each, and design is a big part of it. Project coordination and construction oversight, certainly that is an element too. But operationally, my role in the company is to sit with each department and focus a lot on people and processes, and see, hey, where can we be more efficient? What are we doing really well, interdepartmentally, and then with clients, and then our business processes, and just figure out how we get better each day, and so sometimes I'm hammering away at that, and then sometimes I need to kind of remind myself, like, hey, I need to tap back into the creative role, so when I went back to Southern Wind, and I sat with the owner, John Versfeld, we talked a lot about like that balance, all right, how are you going to do this? And so, but that part has been good and a good challenge for me, and I've enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know for me, and probably you too, I have to have some sort of creative outlet. Like, it's just something that I have to find opportunities to do. And I know you get to do some of that too, but when you're, working on a small business, like, there's a lot of operations and stuff behind the scenes that you just have to figure out. And I mean, even last night we were spending time working on processes, and it's just one of those things. It's like, okay, we carve out the time to do that. We also find times to be creative, because otherwise it's just, you can't have all or nothing.
Yeah, that's what I told him. I was like, I got, I got to do the fun stuff. Like if
Yeah.
I drop that, then, you
Yeah.
know,
Very cool.
yeah.
So, what would you say is something people would be surprised about your journey to where you are now?
Well, I think even like when we were talking, beforehand, a lot of people, when I tell them, hey, I'm an outdoor designer, I do pools, landscapes, it's like, did you go to school for that? And you're like, no. And they're like, what? Because they're landscape architects and things like that. Certainly, there's education there, architecture and things like that. But outdoor design is one of the small pockets where you can be a creative person and kind of come in the side door. So I think that surprises a lot of people. But having a drawing background, that was something that they translated really well into the creative part. Um, it makes you cool at parties. You're cool with your kids for like a small amount of time. People want to talk about it. They like to see the work.
Yeah.
And I think especially in the last few years, people are seeing the way that that's really taken storm, especially in this area. I mean, this is probably when we go to international shows and things like that, you learn that, this area is really one of the top places really in the world for what we're doing.
Wow.
So yeah, so we share that with people and they're like, no way. I mean, Australia, Mexico, like all these different places that are coming on, they're in line with this. So that, and then I think for me, like personally, when people hear the background too, that usually surprises people a little bit.
So, what about your background you think is most surprising?
Um, yeah, I played football. I grew up in a football family. From the time I was a kid, I had older brothers. They were my heroes, man. And them and my dad. But and I probably wrestled with that a little bit, because times are different now. I think our kids are more advanced than we were, but back then, it's like, you had the jock kind of stigma and then you had the artist stigma and there was always this like wrestling, like warring.
That's so true. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you play football and you're that guy or you're this artistic guy. And I think kids are more open-minded now and things like that. But I always had that wrestling and, so I, communicate to kids, look, you can do both,
Right.
In fact, they usually blend together in this very cool way to where you take experiences and apply them to what you're doing now. And it really does show up every day for me. So that's why I feel like fortunate that I was able to have that, part of my life. So
very cool. Now, would you say that, I mean, I would imagine, like you mentioned, growing up in a football family, and you mentioned you played in college as well. So that's been a big part of your life. Most folks that, I get to talk to that have that sports background, especially at a high level, a lot of them feel that has a huge impact on what they're doing today, like off the field, when it comes to coming up with strategies and things like that. Do you feel like that's true for you, or do you feel like even in operations, the creative side helps you with operations?
They both do. I definitely lean probably more on the that football history, and a lot of it is the coaching that I had. I was a quarterback. You got way too much credit when it went right, and you got way too much blame when it went wrong. You're used to kind of being on an island and everybody seeing that. But even some of the nuances of the game, inside of the game, where learning how to manage people, manage a huddle, understanding different personalities, what their strong parts were, and then maybe what their weaknesses were, being able to adapt within a play, being able to be creative within a play, having a short-term memory, when things went wrong, because they did a lot.
Yeah.
The work ethic associated with that, where you may spend a year where you work really hard and you may not see the field. That was a lot with your fortitude and your persistence, dealing with different styles of coaching and leadership and management, and just like navigating that as a young man, where you're like, all right, these are flawed men and I'm one too, and like the process of like learning that. And then the things, I remember the coaches that I played for, and in some cases, the ones that I played in spite of. And so like as now in a leadership role, I think it really impacted me with some of the younger guys and the designers that I'm coaching. And as I see them like navigating these challenges where they're in their 20s and they're closer in age to my kids than they are to me, and I'm trying to figure out like, what are you? You know what I mean? Like, what exactly are you? But it did hit me. I thought back to some of the more challenging moments in I don't say my career, but in my time playing. And I'm like, you know what? God allowed me to go through those things and through those challenges to build who I am today so that I could be more effective to these guys and help them, see their way through it, and then the creative part gets to be the fun part, where that's the reward, so like I said, I look back on those times and I'm so glad that I had that experience because it's helped me a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you have like a favorite design that you've done? Like I have, as a designer, I have some projects that I'm like, those were my favorite, whether it be because the clients were amazing or we got to be super creative, or maybe it was a mix of both. And like I have like a list of ones. I'm like, if I could do that one again, I would do it again. Like I loved it. Do you have anything like that from like a pool design perspective, or even just a pool that was so wild and like out there and amazing?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, you definitely have your ones that you immediately think of. Some of the ones that I did early on, there was, first getting into design, there wasn't any blocks of, construction knowledge. You kind of let it rip. And those were some that were fortunate to win international awards on. And I do think back on those. And a lot of times it was working with creative people that gave you the right amount of balance to let it rip, like go for it, and, I do think of those. But a lot of the times, yes, to your point, like the people, that's a huge part of it in the relationship. And so that it's more full. But yeah, there were certain times where I was trying new things with features, with 3D tiles and tape lighting and getting into a lot of stuff that you guys do on the interior side, or challenging myself in different ways with trying new different things with water lines or hardscapes around it. So there's certainly a handful of them that you immediately go like, yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
And they're unique. You can't force that on everyone.
Right.
I think one of the things I was thinking about is people need to see themselves in your design to an extent. And then some people want to turn it over to a designer and they just go, do your thing. I don't want to get in the way. But there has to be, and you guys tell me, like, has to be an element of collaboration. Otherwise it's, you're just throwing stuff at them.
Yeah. We enjoy a collaborative process because otherwise it tends to feel more just transactional. And for the types of projects we like to work on, a lot of our clients are families, and they either have young families or they have families that are growing and they want those kids. They're thinking about when those kids come back from college or when they're married and they bring their grandkids. So being able to do projects through that lens, we have found brings like the most joy to what we do. And we enjoy being able to serve our clients in that way. I think that because we have those types of projects, we continue to attract those types of clients. So
I think like I get the most inspiration from a design perspective from the actual clients, like learning about who they are, where they come from, their kids, like just, and then hearing them discuss their dreams and, what they want for their home. Like to me, that inspires me. So it is really collaborative and like visualizing them living in that home and their kids running through the hallway or eating breakfast at that island in the kitchen. Like all of that is like inspiring. Yeah. So it helps just that creative process flow better.
Yeah, and because it is a little bit hollow if it gets stripped down to just like a drawing.
Right.
It's like if you're like, all right, here's this really cool drawing, but it doesn't have you integrated into it. So that part is huge. I do tell people there's a right amount, there's a good dosage. We were talking about tattoos earlier. You can go into a tattoo parlor and be like, I want exactly this, and they'll be like, all right, there you go. And turn around, or you can go in and say like, hey, these are the things I really like. And then you let that artist do his thing, and then those typically end up being, way better.
Yeah, one-of-ones.
Yeah, I made that mistake myself. I'll draw my own tattoo. And then I look at that thing and I'm like, I want to just go over the whole thing. Like, forget this, dude. Like, I look at other people when I get like FOMO, like, dude, that's way more artistic than what I got going on. So,
that's funny.
Yeah.
Funny.
What do you think one of the biggest challenges is that you face working with clients when it is collaborative? What is one of the biggest challenges to that process?
I mean, just finding the solution where they feel like, again, that they could see themselves in the design. and I get into this a little bit into the coaching element too, where you have to let people air out what they're thinking. You have to find common ground when there's times of conflict, and then de-escalate it. It's an old Dale Carnegie thing, that I picked up, and it's like, absolutely, what I tell people is like, when they come with an idea that's like just way outside of what your vision is and where you see the thing going, if you throw the hard roadblock up, well, now it's not even about what we're talking about. It's just about winning, this innate thing that people have. And there's this, all of a sudden the rope tightens. I was like, so, allow them to say it, find the common ground, even talk about in a positive way about how you would create that solution, give them the drawbacks to it. And then all of a sudden, many times they'll come right back around and be like, you know what, I think we need to do this. And it was what you came up with in the first place. And you're like, I think it's a great idea,
Yeah.
and you move. So,
Yeah.
and there's give and take. And then sometimes they bring up things and you're like, you know what, that's actually better than what I came up with. And, the revision ends up being way cooler, so.
I think what you said about working to find that solution is huge. We found that in our own work too. When you're dealing with any sort of construction, there's going to be things that come up. There's just no way around that. But having people that you're working with, whether it's the client or the people doing the work, when you have a team that's actively trying to find solutions as opposed to, like you said, just tightening the rope and putting a block in place.
Yeah.
It creates, I think, the experience that we all envision when we're doing these types of projects.
Yeah. And there's no shortage of humility once you go through like what we do as designers. And I'm sure you all as well, where you're vulnerable enough to, like, again, be creative, throw that out to people. And then, although some of the best results that I've had is when people were like very honest and like, this is boring. Like, you were way too safe on this, like, do something else. I'm like, all right,
Okay.
yeah, you better wear your hat. Let's go then. So, and those have produced some really cool things. So yeah, you get challenged, but no, it's good. I mean, when I, talk about coaching a little bit, and talk about what people maybe should know about designers, it takes a very versatile person to be able to accomplish, what you all do and what we do in design, like, because it's not just being creative, it's conflict management, it's communication, it's, again, adaptability, some of the things I talked about earlier. And you really have to be this like universal type individual when it's obviously sales minded, you're estimating, you're in construction, that knowledge needs to be in place. And so, especially for young designers, it's like, to them it's new, so they're just like, I guess this is what it is. But many people, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So, and it is a lot.
We have some younger designers right now on our team. One's an intern, and one, I think she is 2 years or 3 years out of college. She's our junior designer. And I think sometimes I feel bad because they're probably just like drinking from like a fire hydrant, like it's just like all the information coming at once. And I feel like that can be overwhelming, and like you don't know until you're in it. It's hard. Like, I don't feel like school adequately teaches like all that there is to know until you actually get in it. One of the things I wanted to ask too was just like, what about like budget? Like, do you have to have those tough conversations when customers come to you and they have like all of these, inspiration pictures and it's all beautiful, but then they also have a budget that doesn't align with what they're showing you?
Yeah.
And how do you, because we deal with that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you navigate those conversations and like either like, because you don't want to like, like burst their bubble and disappoint, but you have to be like, okay, we have to get back to reality here.
Yeah. I try not to be, like on TV where they have the shows and they walk them through that amazing thing, and then they just like choke slam them and they're like, that's this much. Yeah. Like a kid.
Yeah.
Like, that's wrong. That's messed up. You did that for TV. Those poor people.
Yeah.
They signed up for it. I don't feel bad for them.
Yeah.
No, there is like a good way to say it. I do try to keep people up to speed on the altitude that they're at. There's you try things and you learn things on like how you show the design and get them going, and then the right time to introduce that. Again, it is totally an expectation business, as you all know, and that carries all the way through the build back to when you first met them. So as you grow, you get better at doing that. But I like to tell people like, hey, we don't need to blow up spaceships if that's not what you want to do. to quote another designer. But the thing is, I think people, they appreciate you laying it out, showing them everything that they're looking for. You don't keep things behind the curtain that maybe they would have been interested in. And then you categorize it and show transparency into what the costs are, and you let them decide with you. And so you're not making decisions for them unless they just say like, hey, I really need some help here, you know? And with you guys, it's so vast with everything you're doing inside the home. I mean, for us, it's I'd say on a smaller scale. But yeah, similar challenges for sure. I think pools sometimes are like one of the things that people keep like stuck in time, you know, as far as what they cost, and everybody remembers what their first one costs and things like that.
They
But
do. It's interesting.
it's different. Yeah.
Yeah, that is really different. We built a pool a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And I remember just talking to all of our friends that had done a pool, and they're like, oh, well, ours costs this. And I'm like, well, why is ours costing this? You know, but I'm like, oh, that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's interesting people's perspective on pools. They seem to think that they cost a certain amount and that's just what they are forever. And that's not really the case at all.
Yeah, yeah, and they're built so much differently, and there's even, you know, advancements in engineering, advancements in, you know, details like waterproofing, the materials now that people are using, the type of fixtures, and now the tough one is when you've got this complete design, you know, you've got structures and fire, and you've got the pool and hardscapes, and you know, people are like, this is a $350,000 pool, and you're like, there are a lot of other things going on.
Yeah,
out
it's
here.
not just the pool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but it is what it is, you know. I mean, but it is good, you know. So, but I will say though that from a design standpoint, there needs to be, people need to feel like there's an element of exclusivity when they see what their project is with what they're paying, you know, especially when you go into those levels. I mean, people have to feel like it's unique to them. They want that. And it's hard because you go on Instagram and Pinterest, and design is like so vast, you know, it almost feels like it's too much, you know, but it also triggers something in people where they're like, I have to have this exclusive kind of different thing, you know, and how am I going to get that, you know? So
Yeah. What is the if we ever did another pool, what is, you want a zero, you don't want, what is it? I want his thoughts on that.
Yeah. I've the zero edge pools where you
There's no
literally
waterline
just walk
tile.
out.
Yeah.
And it's we've seen a few of those in some big projects from a builder out in Arizona.
What are your thoughts, and is it really expensive to do that?
Yeah.
Yes, and yes.
That's an advanced pool, you know, and the technical stuff behind it is pretty fascinating, and you know, just the edge detail and tile, and it's razor sharp, you know, how it has to, you have to pull that thing off in perfect, you know, form. The ownership around that, I've never owned one. I know of people that have. That's a different game too. When you get in expectations of what's it like to like own this specific pool, what kind of, you know, what kind of maintenance am I looking at? And so it looks great in the magazine, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I've not personally done it myself. I've seen them built, and I've been around it enough to kind of know, but it's an incredible look. There's nothing like it.
Yeah. I will admit, I made a mistake as a designer on our waterline tile. Such a disaster. I went with white, and the grout is white. Well, it used to be.
Yeah.
And it's just a mess. It's awful. And so I hate waterline tile. Like, I think I hate it so much just because I made a bad choice, because I wanted this like really white, bright pool, and the tile that I selected is glass, and it's like iridescent, or it used to be. So I thought it was going to be so amazing, and it's just been a disaster. And so do you help guide, like you do the design, do you guide in that selection process too? You do?
Yeah, so I'll put a board together, probably similar to what you do, and it is using knowledge from the past and in my own project as well. I joke that mine was just my, you know, it was just my way of figuring out all the things not to do so that I didn't do them for my clients, but they're at home, you know, and you're like, you look at it and you're like, ugh. Like doing tile on the steps, you know, that was a cool thing.
I remember that. We almost did that.
Yeah. And see, but the thing about that though, is if you get to where you hate that tile, now you got to replaster the entire pool, because, you know, you can't take those out. Right. So, If you didn't do that, then you have a good opportunity to change that tile without having to
Mm.
maybe
Can you
change the
change the
plaster.
waterline tile?
Yeah.
Like, is it a big deal?
Nah,
Really?
nah, that's not too big of a deal.
They won't mess up the plaster?
I mean,
It
there's some
could.
disclaimers in there where it's like it could.
Yeah.
Some people can pull it off without doing it, but I'd say give it a shot. Yeah, I mean, if you, remodels are huge. Right
Okay,
now.
we're
Yeah.
doing it. Our
Yeah.
2-year-old pool, we're remodeling it.
Yeah. Reimagine. You know,
Yeah.
that's the thing. No, remodels are huge. Where people come back and they're like, all right, I want to revisit this, and so that's cool. It takes a little bit of a different brain to do that.
Yeah, let's talk about that because that is, I mean, we experience that as well. Like new construction tends to be easier because you're just, you're going vertical, like you're starting from the ground up.
Yeah.
And remodels, like we've had some really exciting remodels, but there's different challenges that get presented in remodels that you don't have to necessarily overcome in new construction. So it's similar with pools as well.
Yeah, there's ones that you walk up on and you're like, all right, we don't need to blow this up. Like we can work with this. And then there's some, if they've got cracks in it or if they've got significant issues or the shape's not there. I mean, you don't want to cut a pool in half and start over. It's just best to remove it and start fresh. Kind of like the one that we collaborated on, where you walked out there and you're like, nope. that ain't it. That ain't it. Like I saw what neighbors doing in there, and we're not doing that out here. We're not gonna do that. So, and people appreciate that honesty, But then when they find out, like, oh wait, so I can have exactly what I want. Maybe it doesn't have to be just, figuring this Frankenstein out. Like, and they're into that.
Yeah, yeah.
But
what do you think the biggest piece of advice you would give to someone in this industry, especially as a director of operations? What's that one thing that like you feel really is impactful?
Yeah, so I guess there's a few things that I hit the team with quite a bit, and it's in a way of encouraging them. Being in the service industry like we are, I think it's important to remind people that what I'd say is that I heard this from a mentor, you're passionate about what you're willing to suffer for and what you're willing to experience discomfort, for. And it's not a physical suffering. It's much more, this process, especially outdoor construction, very emotional. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, you don't get to step away from it. You look outside and it's right in front of you, with homes. I'm sure you deal with it if people are trying to stick around while you're doing some of the work, but you step away, you come back, you're like, all right, it's not as far as I thought, but I'll leave. With what we do, that's not the case. So you're in there with it. And so I say that in a way to encourage people, like the people on the team, I know we're passionate because I see the sacrifices that you're making each day. Like I see the willingness to work for people when they're having a hard time, and it's coming back to you, and so you should take pride in that and always gauge that, because if you get to the point where you're like, I'm not into this, then hey, well then and it's not that big of a deal. But you do have to be passionate about people and use your work to change their home, and like what you talked about, the kids running around and stuff. That's the thing, designing is cool, the pictures are cool, that's the fun part. But when someone sends you a video of their family celebrating a birthday, or the kids, standing out by the milestones, I mean, that's the part that hits you and you immediately remember. Everybody remembers the pool they swam in when they grew up. Yeah, I do.
Oh, it's so
Yeah. Yeah. My grandmother, and it was nothing. Like it was a small little rubber looking pool, it had a clothesline out back. It was a statue of Mary over there in the corner. Like it was in Tampa, but it was nothing. But when I was a kid, I was like, man, this is a life, dude. I'm looking at the clouds. So there's that. And then one thing I try to impress on the team a lot from a tactical standpoint, and I picked this up from, there was a coach at Duke, I had a buddy that coached high school basketball, and they went to go watch one of their scrimmages, and I won't get into too much of the details, but essentially there's three attitudes. There's a good attitude, there's a bad attitude, and there's the right attitude. And so the right attitude, there's a focus, there's an intensity, there's a seriousness about it. There's a level of expectation, that drive. And that's required for what we do. You can be optimistic and it's all gonna be okay. You don't want to be negative, that can creep in, especially with all the challenges, but the right attitude is what I impress upon a lot of people a lot. So
Yeah, that's powerful. The
Hmm.
three attitudes, because I do think there is a difference between even a good attitude and the right attitude,
Hmm.
right? And so, yeah, I think those are things that, regardless of whatever industry you're in, that kind of mindset is the right one to be successful.
Yeah, and you have to be, and confidence is everything. It shows up in, again, shows up in quarterbacks and football, and people, they play off of that. Um, the industry is changing some to where more are charging for design, and there's a little bit of risk kind of when you do that, or at least you perceive it, but you do have to believe not only in your talents. It's not like you're buying a drawing from me. You're reserving focus, you're reserving creativity. It's not being cast across a ton of projects. And so, um, and people will pick up on that when you're confident in what you're doing, and they're investing in it. It's also for them, I think what customers should know is that when you, at the outset, invest in a designer and you say, I trust you, I believe in you, I know that you're going to do something incredible. I can't wait to see it. What that does for us internally produces such a cool result.
Hmm.
That just that immediate acknowledgement in the relationship, because the relationship is everything.
Yeah.
We talked about our favorite projects. Usually there's a great relationship.
Right.
It's never just, I was just on an island running with this thing. And maybe some guys can operate that way, but
Mm.
I can't. It always is a lot looped
Yeah.
together. So,
Yeah,
Yeah, I know for me, like, I'm sad when those projects actually end because I'm like,
yeah.
shoot, now I'm not going to see you anymore, like, and I get sad about it. Like, we have a big project in Dallas right now that's wrapping up. I mean, we're really close to being done. And I'm like, how are we going to like keep talking to these people? Because I'm going to miss them. Like,
Yeah.
we've been with them for 18 months. Like, it's going to be weird to not talk to them anymore, you know? So to me, when it gets to that, to the end of a project and that's the feeling, I feel like we've been really successful.
Yeah.
Like, and they feel the same way, they're like, oh, we can't wait to have y'all over for the party when we, do the how, like, and all that stuff. And I'm like, this is what it's all about.
Is there the party though? I feel like the party gets thrown out a lot. And you're like, that party like never. So I try to make the photo shoot the party. Like,
Yeah,
we'll
there
do
you
that party
go.
then, and then it doesn't have to be
I'll
like
let you know if they have the party. Yeah.
it's just like a family thing. You got like weird uncles. Am I the
Yeah.
weird uncle? Like,
Yeah.
just tell me who I need to be.
I know this at this house they have the garage they have a karaoke bar. And so they're like party people. So I
Okay.
think there's going to be a party.
All right. Yeah. Well, if there's karaoke, like I look forward to seeing it on your Instagram
yeah,
and
yeah.
everything. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure there'll be some videos at some point.
Yeah.
If you were to build like your dream pool right now,
mhm.
like, are there any particular features or innovations in the industry that you're like, this is what to do?
Yeah. I mean, certainly, I went for it with this kind of radial modern, kind of eccentric design out of the first one. And it was cool for my yard. I think my style has changed over the years, and I would do something much more simplistic, modern, and then work with the things around it. I mean, as far as equipment and things like that, I mean, something that we do on every pool, in-floor circulation and cleaning is huge for us. Has a lot of benefits to primarily circulation, some cleaning, but heating. You do it 3 times faster. I mean, there are mornings that I forget that we have a party in the afternoon and the pool's in the 70s and we kick it on and that thing's. I'm a wuss, as I grew up in the Atlantic Ocean, so I'm like, that thing needs to be like 90.
That's
So
like me.
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't, yeah.
When I lived in California and in the Pacific, I'm like, I can't do this. The sand's hot, the water's cold. Like, I'm just go home. Like, it was fine, but yeah, in-floor circulation to me is like awesome. I mean, and for this area, it's good. You know, th- Certainly I learned a lot of lessons like you with tile and what's good down the road, and then what's gonna kind of fall apart. I mean, engineering is important if the soils call for it. Helical piers and things like that, just to protect your investment, to make sure that the thing's not going anywhere. Um, that those are some of the things. And what I've learned with stone, what stones I might use and might not, and then where to maybe invest a little bit more with countertops and things like that. And I would probably get into more, cantilever type meta if we were doing structures and things like that. Something that where you're like, all right, I really want to, send it, but we did, the cool part for us is that we did things in phases. I'm giving you really long answers.
No, this is great.
All right. We did things in phases throughout the years. So I encourage people that like you can phase things like as long as you have a master plan and a designer that's thought about 5 years down the road, then you can execute that. Like we did an Equinox, louvered roof system at our house several years after the pool. And that's been so cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it has the look and, it's been great. So, but I would get into I would keep a little bit of the funky stuff, I mean, you
Yeah.
probably tell by the shirt, we just got a little bit of that going on, so.
That's good stuff.
I want
Yeah.
a pool in the shape of a cross. That's what I've always.
You mentioned that. I remember you saying
You
that.
remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we were gonna do that for our pool, but we couldn't do it
With the
because of the
easement
cost
and the
all
layout,
the
yeah.
yeah, and we couldn't get the whatever. It was a whole deal.
It's not
But-
great for perimeter.
Yeah, I'm like, and I saw recently like a house that had like a little play pool like in their courtyard, and it was in the shape of a cross.
That's cool.
And I was like, that's cool. Because then you can have like that little play pool and then your like real pool that's like big and whatever for the kids to jump in and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's creative ways to pull that off. You can
Yeah.
pull that off,
Yeah.
Gotta talk to the right designer.
That's
yeah,
right.
I know.
I'm big into pathways. I'm designing something right now where I'm calling it Peninsula. It's all fancy to make up terms that stick, but it's like this runway of turf that basically runs out into the middle of the water, and you're surrounded by it. But
Wow.
so throughout the years, I've done a lot of different things with pathways running over water or through water, and that to me is something that I like to integrate where I can on some of those unique designs, kind of like the one in the Grapevine where you have that to where it seems like it ends in the water,
Yes.
and romanticize it. I've done them before where like I did a bridge over a pool one time, and I had this idea in my head, like, oh man, like their parents are going to walk over this bridge to come in the house. And then we're shooting the photos and they like walked all the way around the pool.
They didn't use the bridge.
I'm like, dang it. Still look cool, but
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was funny. But
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, so for folks that want to learn more about you, your team, and
Yeah.
the work that y'all do, where can they find y'all?
Yeah, so Southernwind Pools in McKinney. Our company started in 1983, and so we've been doing it since then. But basically go on and submit a request for a consultation with a designer, and then either myself or one of our designers, contact. We go meet people, try to understand them first. We have a design agreement. Once we go into that, then it's full into design, and it's designing the whole backyard. But we primarily focus on pool structures, kitchen, hardscape, stuff like that. So
Awesome.
yeah. So
Well, thanks, Adam. It was unique having another Adam on the
Yeah.
show. It was the
It's
first time.
yeah, where are all the Adams?
Yeah.
And it's basically just our generation.
Yeah.
That's
I,
it.
I think
Yeah,
you're right.
right.
I don't
That's
mean
right.
older or younger. It's just
Mhm.
this group that grew up listening to 311 and
That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
311. Yeah. A lot of pressure with that name, but we've made it. I think
Yeah.
we're doing okay.
Yeah, I think so. Well,
Awesome.
awesome having you on, Adam. Thanks.
No, thank you all very much. It's been so cool hanging out with you. I appreciate it.